Hello, hello. In this particular video, we want to start looking into chapter 4. We want to start looking at different looping structures. And chapter 4 starts off with condition controlled loops. Condition controlled loops fall into three basic categories. You've got while loops, do while loops, and do until loops. We'll talk about the advantages and disadvantages to all three and what a condition controlled loop really is. But we want to explore this through a problem. So, my problem is I want to have the user enter in a PIN number for, say, an ATM, so the four-digit PIN. If the PIN number is incorrect, it should print that it's incorrect. Then the user has to input the new PIN number again. We want to continue this pattern over and over and over again until they get it correct. Obviously, that's not exactly how an ATM works, but for the purposes of our demonstration, that's how we want it to be. It's a condition controlled activity because I'm going to continue to do those two things, tell it's incorrect and get a new PIN number as many times as necessary. I don't know if it'll happen once. I don't know if it'll happen twice. I don't know if it'll happen 10 times, but it will happen as many times as necessary until I get it right. So again, that emphasizes the ability of or our idea of a condition controlled looping activity, an activity that happens repetitively under some given condition, or condition being that it has to be entered correctly. All condition controlled loops need three things. They need some sort of control variable. For us, it'll be the PIN number we enter. That control variable is going to hold a value that will be checked repetitively and changed repetitively throughout the process. But for us, it'll be the PIN number. The second part is a Boolean condition that will include the control variable in some way. Generally, most of your condition controlled loops are going to loop on true. The do until will loop on false. So most of them set up pretty similarly, but we'll see some of the differences in there. But either way, they all have some sort of condition, something that can evaluate to true and false based upon the control variable. And then three, most importantly, is we're going to need some sort of change to the control variable. If we don't have that change or we change it incorrectly, we could end up in a looping activity that never ends or maybe one that never starts. So we have to be really careful about how we change that control variable in the looping structure as we start working our way through. So let's think about this problem in terms of these three loops. The while loop is what we will call a pretest loop or precondition loop. Okay. What that means is you are going to check the condition, and if the condition is true, you will do the looping activity. If it's false, you will not do the looping activity. You will check it once every time prior to executing the body of the loop. So essentially, this is what this looks like in general. I'm not going to make declarations or a whole start stop. For this one, I'm just going to kind of do the meat and potatoes of it. So we're going to have the user enter a PIN. So for a while loop, we call this the priming read or the priming input. We need this variable. This is going to be my control variable prior to entering the loop because I need it to judge to see if I should even enter the loop. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to input a PIN number. Okay. Once I've input the PIN number, I can check to see if it's correct or not. And I don't necessarily want to use an if statement here. I can use the loop to kind of simulate the if statement as well. Because honestly, I only want to input the PIN again if it was incorrect. If it's correct, I want to move on with the rest of the program, just say access granted. But for me, while is my keyword for a while loop. My PIN is not equal to whatever the correct number is. Let's just say it's 1234. Terrible PIN, don't use it yourself, but for the purposes of our demonstration, if my PIN's not equal to 1234, then I want to get in here and do a few things. So I'm going to then tab over, say I'm inside the block. I want to display that the PIN is incorrect, and I want to get a new PIN. So if you think about it, I've done all three of my things. I have my control variable, it's the PIN. I have a condition here that's being checked. While this is true, I want to do these two things. I want to display that it's incorrect, and I want to input a new PIN. So there's my third part, a change to the control variable. I input the PIN here, I input it again, and then if, okay, I come back up here and check to see if this is correct or not. And if this is a true statement, I do it again. If it's a false statement, I stop doing it. So once I back out, oops, print or display, granted. Okay. So that is essentially your basic and simple while loop. You have your control variable, A condition under the keyword while this condition is true, execute the body of the loop. In the body of the loop, there is a change to the control variable. It can be an incrementation, like an increase or a decrease. It could be user input. Normally, it's user input with the while loop. So we'll input the pin and then we'll come back up here and we'll check it again. If the pin's not equal to 1, 2, 3, 4 again, we're going to do these again. I'm going to keep doing it until the pin is 1, 2, 3, 4. In terms of a flow chart, here's essentially what that looks like. When I come in, obviously I'm not going to flow chart the whole thing. So I'm going to gather some input for my while loop. We're going to input our pin number, right? The condition is no different than a selection statement. We are still going to use the same diamond. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to grab a diamond shape. And I'm going to say while my pin is not equal to 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Notice I didn't say the keyword while. It's unnecessary. My flow lines will dictate that it's a loop. Again, I like my trues to always come out to the right, my falses to the left. So here, if this is true, I want to print or display that it was an incorrect pin. That there, bring that over, down, connect this appropriately to the top. We'll say on true, right? And then we are also going to get new input number. And now here's where your looping activity really comes into play. It's how you design your flow. Okay. So here on my true side, if this is still, once I input the new pin, I need to come back around. And notice how I kind of just drag my flow line from bottom, move it up. I'm going to move it up to here. I'm going to bend this out just slightly so I get that bend in it. I'm going to bring this all the way back around here. And now you can really start to see the loop. While my pin's not equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, display it was incorrect, input a pin. Come back around, check. Is my pin not equal to 1, 2, 3, 4? If that's true, if it's not 1, 2, 3, 4, display it's incorrect, input a new pin. And continue that flow over and over and over again. Once it isn't true anymore, let's bounce out here. We'll display something like that. It is access granted. And I am out of my looping activity as I work my way through. Okay. And so that's how my basic while loop kind of sets up. You can see while this is true, we keep doing these things over and over and over again. The condition gets checked prior to the body of the body of the loop being this indented piece over here. And somewhere in the body of the loop, the condition gets, or the control variable gets changed, and then I can go through and I can check it again. So this works out very, very well. Okay. Let's check out our do while loop. The do while loop is a post test loop. This means is that you don't check the condition until you execute the loop body at least once. Okay. So the nice thing about this is you don't really need that priming read, but your loop body may be a little bit more difficult to read or difficult to build because there might be other conditions and things you want to check to get things done, especially under this type of scenario. But at least I don't have to prime my input. I can grab it because I'm guaranteed to get in the loop at least once. Since I'm not going to test the condition till the end of the loop, I have to do and execute the body of the loop one time. So if you're in a situation where the loop body is just something you need to execute no matter what, it's got to happen once, a do while loop might be your best bet. Okay. Now to convert this into a do while loop, I would simply do something like this. I would have my program start, and somewhere in there I would say do. Okay. And I'm going to tab. The do has no condition. So I'm going to do these things regardless. I'm going to do it. I'm going to input my pin. Okay. And since I just put in the pin, I still need to decide whether or not it was correct or incorrect. So I might have to ask a question here. If pin is not equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, then I might say something, display that it was pin was incorrect, right? And then I'm going to want to input a new pin. Well, no, I'm not going to want to input a pin. I'm going to want to say while my pin is not equal to 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. I'm going to want to do this stuff again. And that's where I get a little confused with this because I tend to have to write the same condition more than once because oftentimes I want to do something based upon the condition being true or false. But since I'm not checking the condition prior to the loop, I don't know yet if it's true or false. And so I have to kind of work it in this manner, which is why I tend to prefer the while loop. I think it's a little bit cleaner. It kind of kills two birds with one stone. I'm checking the condition prior to getting the loop, and I just have to make sure I'm organized appropriately. The do while loop, though, it does force me to get in the loop once. I can do things in the order that seem more natural, where I input the pin, check to see if it's correct, and while it's not correct, do it again. And that's essentially how this loop kind of works together. So you'll see that this kind of condition comes at the end, thus a post test loop. And then we will print or display access granted. Okay. Now, in a flow chart, it would look something like this. We would start with just our statements. Okay. We're going to input a pin. So let's come over here, grab our input, which is right here. Right. And that's essentially what we had there. And then I had a condition that said, okay, if the pin was incorrect, so let's bring in our diamond. Let's come in here, down, diamond. If pin is not equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, then I'm going to come around here. Let's make this a little bigger so we can see it. Then we're going to come over here. We're going to display it was incorrect. Okay. And now this is a one-way selection, so we do have to kind of bring this back together, merge these back together. So I'm going to draw a flow line here, right underneath this. I'm going to bring a flow line here, right underneath it. We'll get them to tidy up and tie in. This is on the true, okay? This is obviously on the false. But again, we do need to come back up and around to doing these things again, okay? So what I want is this flow line to really extend out this way, okay? And then work its way up and back around to the input. And so this false is actually over here, okay, as we start working our way through. Actually, I'm missing a condition. Sorry. So we need this to come into our condition again. It seems odd that we have to ask the same condition more than once, but that is essentially what we need to do. So where's my condition? Diamond. And we'll bring that there. And then on the true of that, we are going to ask for our input again and come back in. And then on the false, we will exit. Okay. Seems weird that I almost have to ask the same condition twice, but it's just kind of how it breaks down. We got to decide whether or not it's incorrect or correct. I can't do it in the middle of this process, I suppose, because I don't want to display it was incorrect prior to getting the pin in. So it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And I don't want to display it's incorrect unless I've checked to see if it's in. So this would be one of the best logical ways to kind of go about how to make this particular loop. Is it pretty? No, it's not. I think the while loop is a much better way of going about it. But the do while loop does serve its purpose, especially if you're not necessarily checking to see if things are correct or incorrect, and you just want to keep going until something is true or until something is false, I suppose. Okay. Now, in the do until, it's exactly the same as the do while, except the condition changes to loop on false and not on true. Okay. So over here, what we will do in our do until, it is still another post test loop. The only difference is how we word it. We're going to keep doing things until something's true. Once it's true, we exit instead of doing things while things are true. So essentially, we're going to write it the same way. Do, and we're going to input our pin, some room. If the pin is not equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, we will display that it was incorrect. Okay. And then we're going to keep doing this until my pin is equal to 1, 2, 3, 4. And once it is, we will print or display access was granted. Okay. So really no shorter, it's just a different type of condition. Until this is true, keep doing these things. So maybe that's just a better way to speak about it. A lot of languages don't have a do until loop. A few do, maybe something like Ruby or maybe even VB has a do until. And it's a different way of writing it so that it's more, I don't know, closer to what you might say in a natural speech. But it doesn't offer any advantage over the do while, to be perfectly honest with you. Every do until can be written as a do while. Every do while could be written as a while loop. So again, you're also stuck picking between the constructions and logical practices that you have of your programming language. So all programming languages have a basic while loop. I tend to stick with this one over any of the others in every situation. But again, let's go through and just code this one really quick in flowchart form. Be perfectly honest with you, not a whole lot has changed, so I'm going to copy and paste this one over. But I'm going to change my condition to say double equals. Okay. I'm going to change my flow line to move to the left and come back up to the input because we loop on false. And once it's true, we exit. That is the difference on the do until and how it operates. So we loop on false instead of on true. We will, on the do while, loop on true instead of false. So again, it just comes down to how you work them. But the same problem done 3 different ways. I personally prefer the while loop. A couple of reasons. I think it's simpler. I think that looks a lot cleaner in terms of this example at the very least. Are there examples where a do while loop might be better? Absolutely. But then again, you also have to think about the programming language you're using. Some languages don't offer those structures. Python does not offer the do while or the do until loop. So when you're coding for our class or for future classes, possibly the while loop may be your only option. So I would like to see you practice that most of all. If you have any comments or questions about this, we'll get into some coding practices on this in terms of Python a little later, but I don't want to do that in this video because I can't code a do while or a do until loop in Python. They just simply don't exist. So we'll get into some future problems on how to work with that, but that is the basic structure and outline of your 3 different condition controlled loops. Again, if you have any questions, let me know. I'd be happy to help.